In Lesson 3.3, you will be learning how to multiply positive and negative fractions. You will also evaluate algebraic expressions with fractions. For the got it problems in example 1, we will use the strategy suggested earlier on the page. Multiply the numerators. 1 times 4 is 4, and multiply the denominators. 2 times 10 is 20. 4 twentieths reduces to 1/5. For 1b, 5 times 6 is 30, 12 times 10 is 120, and 30 120ths reduces to 1/4. For 1c, 3 times 8 is 24, and 4 times 21 is 84. 4 is a factor of 24 and 84. 4 goes into 24 6 times, and 4 goes into 84 21 times. 6 and 21 have 3 as a common factor. 3 goes into 6 twice, and 3 goes into 21 7 times. The answer is 2/7. For example 2, we're going to introduce negative fractions. And just a little note here, when you're working with negative fractions, assign the negative sign to the numerator. So if the negative sign is out front, just go ahead and put that negative sign with the numerator. So in example A, you can see 3/4 times -7/9, but this time they do introduce this strategy of cross-reducing. 3 and 9 both have a common factor of 3, so you can cross off and simplify. That way in the end you're not having to simplify as much. In example B, remember that when we're multiplying mixed numbers, we first of all have to change those to improper fractions. We can still cross-cancel to make simplifying easier, and then when we're finished we can convert back to a mixed number. For the got it problems 2a, I'm going to assign that negative sign to the 9, so -9/12, and then times -2/3. I am going to do the cross-canceling method to make it easier. 3 and 9 have a common factor, and that factor is 3. So I'm going to cross off the 3 and put a 1, cross off the 9 and put a 3. 2 and 12 also have a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 12 6 times. We also have 3 and 6 as a fraction here that I can reduce to 1 and 2. What I'm left with is -1 times -1, which is 1, and I have 2 times 1, which is 2. The answer to 2a is 1/2. Now just going back here, if I would have not canceled, 9 times 2 is 18, 12 times 3 is 36, and 36 does reduce to 1/2. You get the answer both ways. It's just a preference on whether you want to do canceling before or reducing after. And then we do have a negative times a negative, which is a positive. For 2b, we have a -3/11. So if I rewrite that as 6/9 times -3/11, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 9 3 times, 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 6 twice. I'm left with 2 times -1 in the numerator, which is -2, and in the denominator I have 1 times 11, which is 11. Back up, if I would not have cross-canceled, 6 times -3 is -18, and 9 times 11 is 99. 3 goes into -18 -6 times, and 3 goes into 99 33 times. That can be further reduced to 3 goes into 6 2 times, and 3 goes into 33 11 times. When we're multiplying mixed numbers, we have to change them to improper. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 plus 3 is 27. 27/8 times 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 over 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 27 9 times. 9 times 7 is 63. 8 times 1 is 8. That improper fraction can be further reduced to 7, which is 56, and then 7/8 left over. If you have any problems with multiplying fractions, whether it's multiplying mixed numbers or fractions that are negative, please make sure and ask for help now versus later, because everything from here on out assumes that you are proficient with multiplying fractions, whether they're positive, negative, or mixed numbers. For example 3, we will evaluate expressions with fractions the same way we evaluated expressions with integers. We will substitute the values in and then perform the operations. For 3a at the bottom of the page, we have 3/8 for x times y, which is -2 and 2/9. We're going to go ahead and change that to a mixed number. I'm going to ignore the negative sign for right now. 2 times 9 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20. 20/9 is going to be negative, so I'll put -20 over 9. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 4 goes into 8 twice. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 1 times -5 is -5, and 2 times 3 in the denominator is 6. For 3b, 5 times x, we're going to put 5 over 1 times 3/8 for x, and that cannot be canceled, cross-canceled, or simplified, so 5 times 3 is 15, and 8 times 1 is 8. We can change that to be 1 and 7/8. Finally, y times z, -2 and 2/9 is -20/9 times z, which is -7/10. I will cancel here. 10 goes into 10 once. 10 goes into 20 twice. -2 times -7 is a +14. 9 times 1 is 9. That can be further reduced to 1 and 5/9. In example 4, we have a story problem involving the multiplication of fractions. Just remember, when you have a whole number, we can always turn that into a fraction by putting it over 1. And the strategy of cross-canceling really helps out when you start getting into problems like this, because otherwise you're taking 11 times 255 and then taking that answer divided by 20, when if you actually cancel, it's going to make your problem easier to work with. For the got it problems on 4a and 4b, you will be writing a multiplication problem from the story problem. For 4a, we have the Willis Tower in Chicago that is 1,450 feet, and that will be over 1. And the Empire State Building is 4/5 as tall, so we'll multiply by 4/5. Again, you can multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators and then simplify. I am going to cross cancel here. 5 is a factor of 5 and 1450, so 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 14 twice with 4 left over. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 45 9 times, and then add the 0. Now all I have to do is multiply 290 times 4 in the numerator, which is 1,160 feet. So the height of the Empire State Building is 1,160 feet. For 4B, the longest suspension bridge in the U.S. is the 4,260-foot Verrazano Narrows Bridge in New York City, and then the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Tacoma, Washington is 11/12 as much. Again, if you don't want to cross cancel, you might want to consider using a calculator to multiply these larger numbers If I take 4,260 times 11, I get 46,860. And then in the denominator, I get 1 times 12, which is 12. I can take that answer on my calculator divided by 12 and see that I can see that 12 goes into 46,860 3,905 times. So the length of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge is 3,905 feet. For the higher order thinking problems on page 111, you have 6 problems that involve multiplication of fractions. And for 54, we have 2 variables, an x and a y. And so what we want to do is we want to get rid of the 2/3 by multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 3/2. And when you multiply by 3/2, the 3's cancel out and the 2's cancel out. But if you multiply one side of the equal sign by 3/2, we have to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to put down 3/2 here. I'm going to put the negative sign with the 3. So -3 times 3 is 9, and 8 times 2 is 16. And so what we have is x over y equals 9 over 16. So the missing fraction for 54 is 9/16. Let's try that process again with 57. I want to isolate C and D, so I need to get rid of the 9/10 in front of it by multiplying by -10 over 9. And it really doesn't matter where I put the negative sign here because I'm going to cancel them out anyway. 9's and 10's cancel out. But when I multiply by it on the right hand side, I'm going to put it with the numerator, so I'll put -10 over 9. And so what I have here is a -3 times a -10, which is a +30, and then 5 times 9, which is 45. Of course, I can reduce by 5. 5 goes into 30 6 times, and 5 goes into 45 9 times, and that can be further reduced to 2/3. The answer to 57 is 2/3. If you're ready to try one of these problems on your own, press pause and then do the problems, and then press play to check your answers. Otherwise, let's try one more together. In 55, we're trying to isolate A over B, so we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of -3/4, which is -4/3, and cancel that out, and multiply by -4/3 on the right-hand side of the equal sign, and we have A over B equals -20 over 24. 4 is a factor of 20 and 24. 4 goes into 25 times, and 4 goes into 24 6 times. So for 55, the answer is -5/6. For 58, we will isolate the R over S by multiplying by the reciprocal of 5/4, which is 5/4, and we can cancel those out. Multiply by 5/4. I will cancel the 5 and put 1, and cancel the 10 and put 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 4 is 8. 1/8 is equal to RS for 58. For 50, oops, I went out of order there. For 56, the reciprocal of 8/9 is 9/8. That cancels out. And 9/8, oops, on the right-hand side, 9 goes into 9 once. 9 goes into 27 3 times. Half of 8 is 4, and half of 14 is 7. 1 times 7 is 7, and 3 times 4 is 12. The answer for 56 is 7/12. And finally, number 59, the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3 over 1, so those cancel out. Multiply by 3 over 1. -1 times 3 is -3, and 5 times 1 is 5. The answer to number 59 is -3/5. Hopefully that's enough practice with multiplying positive and negative fractions. Again, after this lesson, it's assumed that you feel very proficient at multiplication of fractions. So if you don't feel that way, make sure you ask for help and we can get you some more practice problems.